So, growing up, I always told everyone for like many years that I wanted to be a mission control specialist. And you
Okay.
wonder what, this is going somewhere, I promise. But like most kids growing up, they'd say, I want to be an astronaut. It was hard to admit that to myself because I'd obviously spent, 4 years of college, like 5 to 6 years of a career. That's a lot of time to then sit with yourself and say, at some point of time, I became complacent in like how I was thinking about my career and not really going back and thinking about it from first principles. Like, what is it that I really enjoy about this? Like, if I were to start my career again, like, is this something that I would choose? And
Mm,
when I asked myself that question, it was scary because the answer was no, I wouldn't choose that again. And
wow.
it's a hard thing to reckon with. Life kind of rearranges itself if you like work hard and you're willing to find the joy in what you want to do.
Welcome back to Practically on Purpose, the podcast for people who've done all the right things and are now asking deeper questions. Today's guest is someone I've admired for a long time and who's always brought together a sharp intellect with a beautiful mix of sincerity, service, and an experimental mindset. Sravanti Balaji started out with a gold star path. Software engineer at Uber, engineering manager at Loom, a woman who knew how to solve hard problems and rise through the ranks. But at some point, the ladder she was starting to climb started to feel like a trap. She realized that the life and career she was pouring hours into was no longer lighting her up. So she did the brave thing. She stepped off. In our conversation, Shravanti shares the deeply personal journey of walking away from the role that she worked so hard to earn, embracing rest during her pregnancy with twins, and stepping into a new identity as CPG founder at Samsara Nutrition. This episode is about ambition, motherhood, identity, and that uncomfortable but beautiful space between what you were and who you're becoming. I can't wait for you to hear it. Shravanti, it's so great
Hey,
to be with you here
so good to see
today,
you.
virtually. Good to see you. So let's start at the beginning, or at least like one beginning path for you. So you
Cool.
were a software engineer, now
Yes.
you're a mother, a CPG founder, a writer. I want to walk through how this path unfolded for you.
Totally.
Not just the things that you did, but also how it felt being in these identities and what's it been feeling like shifting lanes. Growing
Totally.
up,
Okay, we're going way back. I
we're
love
gonna go
that.
back. No, yeah. Growing up, like, what did you think a successful person looked like? What was
Sure.
the goal of life, and what did it mean to succeed?
Well, super interesting. So, growing up, I always told everyone for like many years that I wanted to be a mission control specialist. And you
Okay.
wonder what, this is going somewhere, I promise. But like most kids growing up, they'd say, I want to be an astronaut. I want to go to
Hmm.
space. And I was always the person who said, I'm too afraid to go to space, but I love problem solving. I love engineering and math. Like, I want to be the person who can solve those problems on the ground for those astronauts. And so I think for me, like success and ambition always look like doing something really big and audacious, but maybe also within the confines of who I am. And I know my limits and what I'm comfortable with. And
Mm,
so that's kind of how I started my thinking about success and what I wanted to be. I got to college. I thought I wanted to be an evolutionary biologist. I took one biology class and absolutely not. It was just not for me. I like dissected a frog. I said, I can never, ever
yeah.
do this again. Ended up in
Yeah.
a
And you don't eat meat, for the
I
record.
don't
So
eat
like
meat.
this.
It was too much. I think exactly like the sensory overload of all of those things
Mm,
was just way too much for me. I think I sort of had a reckoning of there's this ideal of like what I think I want to do, and then the practicalities of what does that day to day look like. And I think that conflict shows up a lot for people, no matter what their career path is like you always have an
mhm.
idea of what you want to do, then you get there.
Dream versus reality.
Dreams versus reality. It shows up a lot. And I ended up with computer science kind of as a default path. I was interested in math and science. I knew I wanted something financially viable after I
Mm.
graduated. Like financial stability was really, really important to me. And that's how I ended up, becoming a software engineer. I liked it. I liked it more than I thought I would. I was still solving problems, maybe not for astronauts, but I was solving problems in ed tech and then at Uber and really like solving problems that affected people's real lives. And I think that that is something I loved about software engineering. Like I could code something on a computer and there's this real tangible effect in the world.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I kind of found my way there from like mission control specialist to software engineer. It's like not as far of a path as one would think.
No, it makes
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. So I will say,
Yeah.
I think you're literally the first person I've ever heard say that they
I
wanted to
know.
be
Nobody has
mission
ever really
control
heard that. And it's really just because I was too afraid to go to space.
to go to
I
space.
still would be for what it's worth.
Did you go to space camp?
I don't think I went to space camp, but it was always a dream one day.
Same here. It
I
looks
think it
so
could still happen.
cool,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll send
one
my kids to
day.
space camp. I'll live vicariously through them.
So you were a software engineer, you're at
Yeah.
Uber, then you were at Loom, you stepped into
Yes.
engineering management
Yes.
roles too. What was
Yeah.
that like?
So I think there's some part of my life, maybe in college, where it felt like I was kind of doing things sequentially, right? I studied computer science, so I should be a software engineer. I'm a software engineer. Now I should eventually become a software engineering manager. And I think that I really kind of looked at my career and my life in that sequential way and thinking of like, well, how does all of the work I've done up until this point, how does it compound and build itself to the next thing? And that's kind of how it happened. I knew that I enjoyed software engineering, but I also love people and I really love, kind of problem solving with people, whether that's helping people grow in their career or figuring out, problems to solve on their team or even just like coding with them. Like I loved that. And so I knew that engineering management was something that I wanted to try. And it was something I actively pursued for a few years.
Mm,
But it was kind of crazy because I feel like it was this idea, again, a dream and an idea in my head. And I got there. I was like, is this it? And I think that you have had this exact thought. And I know you've explore this with other podcast guests, but kind of this idea of like, is this really what I was building towards? Like, this is not satisfying. And I loved all of my direct reports. It was nothing to do with that, but more so the fact that it felt like I was emotionally just way too invested and drained in other people's career. I was stuck
mm,
with like a lot of red tape between, um, other functions of the company and just feeling like I am not satisfied. I'm spending all of my time serving other people, and I don't really know that I'm building what I want for myself.
mm,
And it didn't feel like satisfying as a career.
mhm,
It was hard. And it was hard to admit that to myself because I'd obviously spent, 4 years of college, like 5 to 6 years of a career. That's a lot of time to then sit with yourself and say, at some point of time, I became complacent in like how I was thinking about my career and not really going back and thinking about it from first principles. Like, what is it that I really enjoy about this? Like, if I were to start my career again, like, is this something that I would choose? And
mm.
when I asked myself that question, it was scary because the answer was no, I wouldn't choose that again. And
Wow.
it's a hard thing to reckon with.
It's a hard thing to admit to yourself
Yes.
when you've worked so
Yes.
hard for over a decade to get to
Yes.
this point.
Yeah. Because it's like right, it's a significant amount of time and effort, and then, you don't wanna waste it all away, and so then you think, "Okay, maybe I don't wanna be an engineering manager, like, maybe I wanna be a product manager, or maybe I want to do something else related in tech." But it wasn't really until I quit my job without a plan B that I stepped back and said, actually, like, let me really try to think about this from first principles. And I did something totally different just to get myself out of my comfort zone. I worked in San Francisco local politics for about like 6 months. And
Oh boy.
that was Boy, I know. That was if you're talking about exact opposite, that is the exact opposite of working in tech. There's almost no technology. It's like everything in politics is done with like terribly formatted Excel spreadsheets.
Mhm.
I had a task one time where I was just trying to coalesce 17 spreadsheets. I'm like, why is this the thing? Very boots on the ground work. You are just like constantly knocking on doors, talking to people, getting signatures. And that's, like, wonderful in its own way. You think that you're, progressing towards, like, making a difference in the city. But I think more than teaching me, like, about politics, it taught me, like, what I wanted and didn't want, which is that I think I knew I didn't wanna be in politics, but I knew I wanted
Mhm.
to make a difference in the world. So, I
Mm.
feel like I got directionally somewhere, and then I got pregnant, and then I mean, twin pregnancy was just a
Ooh,
wild ride. So, um, yeah, I kind of put everything on the back burner for a little bit, and yeah,
and
it was
how did that feel? So let's like rewind a little bit to the
Yeah.
point at which you decided to leave
Yeah.
Loom.
Yeah.
Was that moment scary for you, or what was it
It's terrifying.
necessary? Was
It
it,
was
yeah, tell
terrifying
me about
because
that,
yeah,
like
no,
realizing like this is not working, but then
yeah,
actually to jump ship,
yeah.
that like that's a
To
completely different
actually
thing.
jump ship, from the moment I knew this isn't working to when I jumped ship was 6 months. It was a
Wow.
long period of time, because I think around the new year was when I was really reflecting, and I think this was 2023 or yes, 2023. Losing
I know,
track.
with babies and stuff too. You're
I
like,
think
when is it?
anyway, it was January. It's a time that's just generally reflective for me. And I was talking to my husband, and he's like, "Are you genuinely happy at your job? Because you seem stressed all the time. You are in Zooms like for 9 hours a day. Like, are you
Mm,
actually happy? It's okay if you're happy, and if that's really what you want to be doing, but is that what you want to be doing?" And kind
mm,
of realizing I don't think that is what I want. But then to actually quit is much harder, I think, and that's because I was in an engineering management role. I felt so responsible for the people I was managing and making sure that they felt supported and that they had the career growth that they wanted to see and trying to support that. And it's hard at a startup. It feels like sometimes, if I were to leave, like who's going to take that place and who's going to, quite honestly, who's going to care enough about them to make sure that they can continue the work that I was doing with them.
mm,
In a lot of ways, it felt like being a parent in a kind of weird way, right? Where I felt like, oh, I'm responsible for these people. I really care about them, and wanting to make sure that they had the best setup for success. And so that's kind of why it took so long was because it's hard to ever find the right time to leave, but I told myself I was like, let me give myself until the end of the review cycle, try to
okay.
do everything I can. And we had like a 1 week break in the summer for around July 4th, actually. So this was about a couple years ago.
Hmm.
And I said, all right, this has to be the stopping point. I'm forcing myself to leave. And it was so hard too, because my manager at the time, she said, hey, like if you want, you can just stay for like an extra month or so. Just stay for a few extra weeks to
She's
transition,
like dangling.
dangling. And it's so hard because everything in me wanted to say yes. And I knew at the same time, like if I didn't leave, I was never going to leave. It was one of those things where, again, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have a backup plan. And like I knew that if I had stayed for just a few weeks longer, like I would get sucked back into it. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's hard. It's hard.
Well, it's like it seemed like the one thing that you had clear, even though you didn't necessarily know what was next, you knew that this was not
Right.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I had enough information to know that, like, this wasn't the right path. I don't know what the next path is, but I also had the confidence in myself to figure it out. I knew that, like,
Mm,
use
mhm,
process of elimination, like, I'll try something radically different. If that's not it, it's gotta be something else. And
mhm,
I think one thing about me is I feel very comfortable being thrown in the deep end and figuring it out. I'm willing to do that as many times as I need to, and I don't think anyone who is like even like moderately successful, like they all had these kind of minor detours along the way. And that's what I told myself was like, this is part of the process. I think
mm,
one thing that really was apparent to me as I was quitting was like I had to enjoy like the journey to getting to where I wanted to be. So if that was an engineering manager, did I enjoy the journey there? And I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So I knew that like no matter what I did next, I just had to make sure that like I was enjoying what I was doing along the way and finding joy in that.
yeah,
And I think that like sometimes a lot of times this is a little woo woo, but I do think that like life kind of rearranges itself if you like work hard and you're willing to find the joy in what you want to do. And so it was definitely a leap of faith. And I'll be honest, it took almost 2 years to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm doing something that I'm excited about. And I also feel like my worth is a little bit less tied to the economic value I'm bringing to
mm,
society, my family, my home. So that's
mhm.
like a whole other can of worms. So, yeah.
Definitely. But it sounds like what really actually impresses me about your process is, and maybe this is actually going all the way back to younger you, of having this experimental mindset, like the
Yeah,
evolutionary
totally.
biologist, right? And being willing to, so you have the signal of your dissatisfaction, and then being brave to trust yourself to just try some new things out and to not necessarily have the plan baked before you left.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that that type of mindset, I think it served me well. I feel like doing things just a little bit before you feel fully ready, I think is actually the right time. Sounds so
Hmm.
counterintuitive and it is so, so scary. That's advice that's easier for me to give than it is for someone to take. But
No,
yes.
it's hard to live it. It's hard to
Yeah.
live it.
For sure.
So I want to talk as well about pregnancy.
Yeah.
And, during your pregnancy, you're pregnant with twins. I remember talking to you at the time and you're just like, oh my God, Allie, I am what like wiped. And I think you were maybe 5 or 6 months pregnant and you're like, I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm done right
I
now.
remember talking to you saying like, I'm ready to have these babies like right now. It's fine. I'll deal with the consequences.
So it's a lot, and I know that you had to even step back from the work that you were
Yeah,
doing in San Francisco,
exactly.
politics,
Yeah.
just because it was too much. What was it like for you to really relax into quote unquote
Yeah.
doing nothing? Now, obviously, we
There,
all know you are not doing
no,
nothing. You're making
no, I
fingernails and
totally get
eyebrows
that.
and whatever, but
Yes.
nothing externally
Yes,
recognizable.
nothing external. I know it's hard when you're like working and it's all happening inside. I think it was maybe one of the most challenging periods of my life for that exact reason where I am not producing something that people can see. And
Mm,
I guess my like stomach is growing larger and you can tell that the twins are obviously growing, but to not like provide any sort of economic value, like societal value, I'm just kind of sitting there. Like
mhm.
that is so, so difficult to sit with. Because what you also end up doing is you end up sitting with your thoughts. And I'm someone who loves to be
Oh,
out and about all the time. And pregnancy really forces you to sit with your thoughts and to just be contemplative about like your life and how is it going to change. And I think that that was actually one of the most challenging things for me. I think that it was also hard because I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know, was I going to be the type of mom that wanted to stay home with the kids? Was I going to be the type of mom who was like, I am just ready to go back to work as soon as I can? It's hard because all you know is that motherhood is going to transform you and you have no
mhm,
idea how. And
mhm.
that's just, it's such a challenging thing to sit with. It was hard to, yeah, it was just hard to go take life at a more relaxed pace. It is very much, again, like not who I am. But at the same time, I think back at that time and I was like, I read so many books and I watched a lot of like TV that I wouldn't have otherwise. How amazing is it that I had this opportunity to just sit and enjoy life? I took
Yeah.
like long walks with my dog, and I don't know
Mm.
the last time I've done that with my dog since the babies have been born. So I think, like, in hindsight, I think it was a beautiful time. And in the moment, I just felt nothing but guilt. So, yeah.
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 I think busyness is a very effective avoidance
Yes.
tactic. Like we don't call it that, but that's really what it is. So it's amazing that
Absolutely.
you were able to give yourself some of that time to just be, even if in the moment it wasn't, always the most comfortable
Yes.
thing to do
Exactly.
physically or
Yeah.
emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
actually.
Exactly.
But yeah, I similarly, with my daughter had a tough pregnancies, nowhere near, being pregnant with
No,
twins.
I
That is
think
its
that
own
a lot of
that's its own
pregnancies
thing.
are, yes, objectively difficult. So I would not necessarily compare like that. Yeah.
But
That's
it
hard.
was like a necessary slowing down for me that I didn't do actually when I was pregnant with my son. When I was pregnant with my son, I remember I was like 8 months pregnant and I was like out at karaoke wearing 3-inch heels. Like I still have no idea
Incredible.
how I was doing that. That's
That's
just,
incredible.
being
Yeah.
5 years younger than I am now.
But
But
I love that though. I think
it,
that's
it,
like
it
you
was
were
perfect
making the
for that
most of your
moment.
life. Yeah, in that moment.
It was perfect for that moment. But then
Yeah,
to your point about how, when you make a shift, the universe kind of shifts around you. And I think that for both of us, there was some part of us that was looking to shift to a slower pace, that was looking to shift into more meaning, into more authenticity. And,
sure.
maybe the universe like gifted us with difficult pregnancies that actually forced us to
Yeah.
like, make that manifest, to walk that talk.
I love that. I love that framing of it because you're right. Like I think that it's easy for both of us to say, everyone should slow down. I think I'm the first person when I see a friend who's pregnant or if I see someone who's, maybe struggling a little bit to say, slow down, take a break. It's obviously way harder to listen to that yourself until you're physically forced to. You have to be
Yeah.
physically forced. And that's just crazy. So, yeah, I think it's a good reminder to figure out like what are ways that we can even do that for ourselves now. Even though we don't
Mm,
have difficult pregnancies, like how do we continue to do that for ourselves? I'd love to crack the code on that if you figured that out.
yeah. Oh, I don't know about that.
I
For me,
know.
it's my meditation practice, right? As like a daily or near daily
Yeah.
exercise in slowness. That's
Right.
definitely something,
I think
or
that's amazing. Yeah.
walking my dog
Yeah. It's a good one.
while not listening to a podcast, ideally, because I still do have that busy thing of like, oh, I need to layer in all of my self-care
That's
activities at
I was
once.
going to say that's admirable. I am always listening to podcasts now, and it's not something I used to do. It's so hard to take a walk listening to nothing. I
Just raw
admire that.
dogging a walk and
Raw
just like
dogging the
being
walk.
so still staying in the world of motherhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
How has being a mother helped you redefine success, worth, purpose?
Totally. I think motherhood is, like I said, it's transformative. And I think one of the things that it really transformed for me was how much I value my quote unquote free time. I
Mm,
think like thinking through like what does success and ambition look like? Really, for me, it's been like, how do I make the most of my time? And how do I like use my time in a way that brings me joy and brings me happiness in a way that allows me to show up for my kids when I have that time with them when they're awake and, alert and whatever. I think for me, like success looks like, okay, I'm building something of my own. I have my own identity that I'm cultivating. And like I have my identity as a mom. And I think
mm,
allowing both of those to coexist has been something that I've been really, really insistent on. I think it's made all the difference in the world for like not only my happiness, but also how I show up for my family and for my friends and things like that. So I think like just building something that's more values aligned with like who I am and what I would like to see in the world. So I think the other like broader framing of that is like how do I create something in the world versus purely reacting to it. I think that that's been how I've redefined success, which I realize is a little bit more abstract. It's been a really helpful marker for me to think about like, am I spending my time wisely? Is this something that I should be doing with like my
mm.
2 to 3 hours of free time when the kids are napping, for example? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
like not just does it light me up, but is this more of something that I want to see
Yes.
in the world that I feel
Yes.
proud of, applying my
Right.
effort towards
Exactly.
this thing?
Exactly. And I think that was the thing that kind of made me think like, do I want to go back to software engineering? Probably not. And it's not because I don't think that, software engineering or engineering management, like I don't think that it doesn't provide value to the world. I just think that like what I am contributing to software engineering or engineering management like is not as my efforts applied somewhere else
Mm,
and just and feeling like I'm actually like, truly enjoying the journey and not just like achieving like a certain title or certain promotion. Do I actually enjoy the day in and day out of it? So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that is a big, that was just a little comment, but I actually think there's a lot to unpack there, like a good guiding question of like, do I actually enjoy the day to day versus enjoying the title versus enjoying the cushy benefits or the big salary or the prestige that I get when I tell people, oh, I'm an engineering manager
Yeah,
at Loom,
exactly.
for
I know.
instance.
I agree. And I think especially being in the Bay Area, I think it's like the most like status driven like culture that you could be in, where people more than how much money you make. It's like, where do you work? What's your title? It's like the first question that comes up in any sort of social gathering. And sort of
Yeah.
kind of go back to that and say, like, actually, I am not working right now, or actually, I am working on building something of my own that's not in tech. Get a lot of confused faces. So,
They're
yes,
like,
I think
"What?" They're like, "Oh, wait, so hardware?"
hardware. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like, are you in software or hardware? That's kind of what it is. And the idea of building something that is not those things, I think it really again, it's just super, super different when you're optimizing your time for like, am I enjoying what I'm doing versus like, am I saying something that will sound great at like a dinner party? So
Mm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
So let's transition to talking about what you're building during
Yeah.
your precious 2 to 3 hours
Yeah.
each day. Tell me about Samsara. What is it and what sparked it?
Absolutely. Samsara Nutrition is an Indian inspired protein snack brand. And it's something that started when I was postpartum and I was making food for myself. And essentially kind of starting with protein bars because that was the first thing I reached for when I was hungry and in a rush. I was like pumping and I was like, feeding twins and putting them to sleep and burping. And there's almost no time in the day. And so protein bars were something I reached for pretty frequently, but I found that like they were all kind of the same flavors, like chocolate
Mhm.
chip, peanut butter, or maybe like an oatmeal flavored one or something. Not really anything interesting or like something that felt satisfying. And I think for me, satisfaction was like super, super important. I was like, when I eat this, like almost really like everything we've been talking about, like, am I enjoying the journey of eating this? Like, am I enjoying each bite? Or am I just scarfing it down my throat and just trying to get to the next thing? And so, really, just trying to take a step back and say, well, what flavors would I want if I were making this? And so, I just started experimenting when the twins were napping. And I'm lucky I had twins that were mostly napping at the same time. So, I had enough time to experiment.
Mm.
I was like 2 to 3 months postpartum making like mango flavored, chai flavored bars in my kitchen, and they tasted great. I like gave them to friends. They liked it too. And I was talking to Arjun about this, who's my husband, and he's like, I think you should try to like make this a company. He's like, I think other people would want to eat this, right? And I was like, oh, I was like, I don't know that I see myself as a food founder.
Mm.
And I think that there's this idea that like you don't see yourself as something, you don't see yourself like, doing something that maybe you just feels really foreign to you, excuse me. But what I would say is like the only difference between the people who are starting like food companies or CPG companies and us are just the fact that they just decided to
That
do
they
it.
did it.
Like that was literally the only thing. And I was like, that's kind of where this guiding principle of you can just do things comes into play, where it's like, okay, you know what? You can just do things. Let me just figure it out. And I thought, let me give it a shot, see how it goes. And so just started building the brand slowly, like doing the marketing, the branding work behind it, and figuring out like how do I actually scale this to the point
Mhm.
where, I can make this a packaged product that I can sell in like a grocery store, farmer's market. And that's been the process to taking me to where I am today, which is like we're working with a contract manufacturer and we're getting ready for our first production run in a couple months. And so it's like becoming a real thing. We're going to have inventory that we're like, figuring out how to sell to retailers and on our
Wow.
website. And I say we, but it's kind of just me. I use the royal
The
we,
royal we.
but
I like it, though. I like it.
yeah, but it's been such a fun journey, and I think it's, like, really challenged me to think about, you know, what does ambition look like? Is it selling protein bars to just me and my friends at a farmer's market? Does ambition look like, I wanna be in Costco or Safeway? And, like, figuring out, like, what level of ambition I want, and the best part about it being, like, I get to chart what that is for me and figuring out,
Mm.
like, what feels right to me. Like, what is it that I want versus like reacting to like maybe what I think I'm supposed to be doing or what I think should be happening. I'm a complete outsider to the CPG world. I have no idea like what I'm doing. And sometimes I think that's the biggest benefit because I don't know what the standards are. I don't know what's expected of me. And I think the nice thing about that is, okay, well, I'm just kind of going by my own rules and building the business on my own terms and just seeing where it goes from there. And so it's been a lot of like heads down building and a lot of like, logistics and kind of red tape and figuring out like allergens and stuff like that. But I know, right? It's given me a lot of appreciation for all of the products that are on our shelves at grocery stores because there's so
Mm.
much work that goes into making that a reality. I'm super excited for it to be out in the real world, and it's been you see, like, I feel really lit up from it, and, like, I feel so
Oh, I
much more
can tell.
excited to talk about this compared to what I was doing before, which tells me, like, okay, I'm at least on the right path. Like, even if this isn't my life calling, this feels a lot closer to it. And so, yeah, it's been really fun. So
Yeah, yeah. No, even just comparing from where we started in this conversation, feel like you were what you seemed the most lit up about in your work as an engineering manager was like serving other people, and that maybe that's how you were like scratching the purpose itch,
totally.
that it was about something bigger than you. And then hearing you talk about Samsara, you're really solving this problem of like, how do I bring not just sustenance to people,
Yeah.
like sustenance, like just sustenance. I mean,
Yes.
sustenance is a pretty big deal, but how do I bring something beyond sustenance that also sparks a moment of joy and delight? And, maybe there's authenticity or recognition as well. And it's beautiful to see. I'd be curious to hear, and this can be a provisional answer, but like, what does your vision for Samsara look like right now? What feels authentically right, at least as your vision for it?
Totally. I think that there's 2 visions that are, like, battling in my head.
The
I
two
don't
wolves.
Yes, exactly. I don't know. I have, like, an angel and a devil on each shoulder.
Mm,
But what's interesting is I don't know yet. I think I have one vision that's very pragmatic. That's like, I wanna build a really sustainable business. I wanna bootstrap it. I wanna just grow slowly and sustainably over the next, like, 5 to 10 years and just have a good business that brings in money, that makes me feel good about, contributing economically to my family and
mhm,
also, like, providing something of value to maybe not the whole world, but at least, like, the West Coast or like
mhm,
something like a regional food brand. And I think there's the other part of me that's like that has that really deep drive for ambition to say, well, how do I pour the gas on this and like make this the most successful, like large brand it can be? Thinking about like how do I become like a modern Indian brand or like an Indian
mm,
based brand, right? And figure out how do we modernize snacks that felt nostalgic for maybe the Indian community growing up, then also bridging the gap between the Indian community and the broader community who are really getting used to and want these like different unique flavors like mango or chai, for
yeah, I'm
example.
like, "That sounds amazing." When you first told me, I was like, "Please send send me
So
some. I
we will
wanna
have
I
so
wanna
many
eat those
samples in the next
flavors."
month because 'cause we're doing commercial testing. So yes, I have you are 100% on the list for so many samples. But I feel like, yeah, I have both visions in my head, and it's hard to tell which one's going to play out. I think it kinda just depends on, maybe, like, what not necessarily my level of ambition. I think actually both visions are ambitious in their own ways, and it's just kind of figuring out, like, what does ring true to me in the moment. Just really digging deep, maybe like
Mm,
6 months or a year into this journey and allowing myself to be flexible. I think that's like the biggest thing is like, if I can pivot and be flexible with my vision, I think that's going to be the most important thing. So,
yes,
yeah.
it's about flowing, again, going back to the universe, like, flowing with what
Yes,
wants to happen rather
exactly.
than imposing your vision. It's
Yeah.
you're already sharing your vision with the world, but, like, you're
Yeah.
not imposing of, like, "This is how it has to be in this
Exactly.
way."
There are a lot of people, I think, especially in tech, who really want to impose their vision on the world. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's like a very powerful thing to be able to do. Don't know that I necessarily am seeking out that level of power yet.
Mm,
Maybe
mhm.
ever. Maybe mostly just like exactly kind of seeing what does the universe bring to me? Do people actually want this? And kind of going from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So be curious, as you are building, what are
Mhm.
some skills and mindsets that you're bringing from the tech world, and what are some that you're leaving behind?
Totally. I think the biggest thing I'm bringing from the tech world is my like experimentation and growth knowledge. I used to work on the growth team at Loom, and I think the biggest thing I learned was like just launch an experiment, learn from it, move on, and don't be super invested in any one thing. Just like
Mm,
try something. If it doesn't work, that's okay. Try something else. And really just keeping a super open mind of like, sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference. And so I've used that even when it comes to like, sourcing from different suppliers. Like we have a spice blend that we're using in our chai masala bar. And I was like, should I use this proprietary one or a different one? And just being super flexible and saying, an experiment with both. We'll see which one wins out and go from there. And really starting with small experiments before I'm investing in like a large production run, for example.
yeah.
So that's definitely something that I've taken with me. I think it's served me really, really well. And as well as just kind of taking more open-minded approach to how to do business and how to build a business. I think AI is like a really hot topic right now, especially in the CPG world, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who don't want to use it. There are a lot of people who do want to use it. I think that, where I stand is I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it and see what works and what doesn't work and move on. And so I think like just generally tech has given me a very open mind. I'm trying to think of like what I wouldn't take from tech. And I don't know that I have a great example, mostly just because there's just so many things that I think are not analogous.
Right.
Where I think that maybe this is one thing I wouldn't take is in tech, you really tend to focus on building quickly with like a lot of velocity and just trying to get things out the door, move fast and break things, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
G is not like that. If you were to build fast and break things, like your product would get an FDA recall, like you can't do that. So
Yeah, it's
dig
like
out.
we don't want any like weird stuff in our
Yeah, I
bars.
don't want any
Yeah.
weird stuff. And this is a great example where I think I really did have to rein in my tech mindset because, for example, we're moving to our commercial run on production equipment to see how these bars are going to taste. Well, we hadn't like 100% confirmed our water activity, which is what determines mold. And
Mm.
oh, it's below this number. And they're like, and then the manufacturer I'm working with was like, really wanted to be this exact number. And I was like, oh, it's probably good enough. And they're like, maybe it's not good
No.
enough. And I think kind of just having that check and that internal checks and
Mm.
balances being like, okay, maybe this is going to take me an extra like 3 or 4 weeks to launch. That's okay because it's going to save me from like having a bunch of product I can't use.
Yeah.
I think in tech, there's a lot of reversible decisions you can make.
Mm-hmm.
And in CPG, there's not a lot of reversible decisions. And so once you're committed to your packaging, that's it. Like, at least for that production run. And like, once you're committed to your formulation, that's it. At least, and so your rate of iteration is a lot slower. And so that is actually something I would not take with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it's kind of cool, I imagine, to build in a way that involves a deeper level of commitment. And not that things are truly like irreversible. You can
Yes,
always, to your point, you can always like iterate on the next production run, but the costs even
yeah.
then are much, much
Exactly.
higher. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There is this exactly what you're saying. There's this level of like building with intentionality and like and sort of thinking through like what does it mean to craft something with purpose that I
Mm,
don't know that I always had that sense of purpose in tech. So yeah.
yeah. No, you can kind of just like throw some shit against the wall and you're like, I don't know, whatever. Like, we'll
Basically.
see. We'll see.
Exactly. That's definitely how I operated as an engineer.
So you're building this company solo, even though you use the royal we,
Yes.
building it on
Building
your
it
own.
solo. Yeah. I
And
think
that's a big deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a big deal. I think it's hard to build solo because you have to trust your instincts. Like you have to
Mm,
trust and the buck ends with you, right? Like it's just you. And you're the end all be all for marketing, like branding, like the website being built. It all has to happen. Sometimes it's nice. Like I'm not beholden to what anyone else's vision is. I have my own schedule. I basically work whenever the twins are sleeping and like that's great. That's fine. With someone else it's a little bit harder to figure that out, I think. But then at the same time you miss that like sounding board and it's like am I just tunnel vision? Like
mm,
original vision. Are there blind spots that I have because there are blind spots that I have, I guarantee you. It's nice to have my husband as an occasional sounding board, but it's not like he's in it full time or anything with me.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's been weird building it out solo, especially as someone who's very much a people person, loves to interact with people. It's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were like at big companies working on
Yeah,
really big teams. So
exactly.
I can imagine that that's just so different for, and it's nice because there's less, well, it sounds like in CPG, there's just some like inherent red tape, but at least within Samsara, right? As like an org,
Right. As
like
an or
you are the red tape. If there
yes, exactly. I
is
am the red
any.
tape. Exactly. And like I'll talk to AI for sure, but I think we talk about motherhood being isolating. And so it does feel sometimes like I'm doubling down on the isolation by starting something solo. I really
Mm,
that.
hmm.
So now I've been really intentional about like trying to find a community of other CPG founders, trying to find more mom friends. So trying to find community in both spheres of my life.
Yeah.
Otherwise it can be pretty isolating on both fronts. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about community. What has, you have started creating some community, even just through your Substack, this act of
Oh.
showing up online. But I'd be curious, what is community looking like for you now?
Yeah. So community for me, it sounds weird. I've been posting on TikTok. It is so antithetical to who I am and how I
You're
show up
so not a
online.
TikTok person.
It's just like but again, kind of trying to shift my mindset from like just consuming to also creating.
Mm,
It's been really cool. I've like actually reconnected with some people in college who are also starting businesses of their own. They're also
cool.
moms, and I'm like, that's really cool. I did not know you were doing that. And so
Mhm.
I think those connections, just meeting like people online who I wouldn't have met otherwise. And I think I've always been really open to that. Like I've met some of my closest friends through Twitter, which sounds crazy, but like they're friends that I've had for 6, 7 years. I've met through like
Yeah.
a Facebook group or Twitter. And so I really am a big believer in like online community. As long as you show up as yourself, like the right people will come. And I'm a big believer in like not trying to go viral, but just kind of like showing up,
Mm,
seeing, again, what the universe, aka TikTok algorithm brings you. And typically like, I find that it's been pretty good. And so I found community that way, but then also just trying to like, meet people in person, right? And having those
mm,
in-person interactions. The Bay Area, like I know I made a lot of fun of, it being all tech, but there really are quite a few CPG founders here. And so trying to meet those people in person and just learn from them. And that's how I've been trying to find community. It's easier said than done, though. I think that motherhood takes its toll on you. And so often the last thing I want to do is interact with someone new. So I'm trying to figure out how to balance my energy more than like the
yeah.
opportunity of meeting someone, if that makes sense.
I know, I was already wondering, I'm like, can you organize like a CPG meetup at like a park
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
we
I
people
love
probably
that.
have families
Yeah.
and let the kids run around and like
Yeah. Oh, I
let's
love
talk
that.
about our contract manufacturers.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah, no, I love, love, love that idea. And as soon as my twins are old enough, that's what I will be doing. So I will
Mhm.
need to have a way to get their energy out. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Any surprising connections or doors that have opened just by virtue of
Mm,
you showing up as, sharing your
yeah.
authentic truth online?
Totally. I have this random connection off of Substack. She's someone who followed my Substack and we started talking. She is actually doing an Ayurvedic like program online and we just ended up
Hmm.
talking about Ayurveda and like how does like healing happen in the body and then how does that show up
Mhm.
in your life and like what are different herbs and spices and things that you use. And just like getting to talk to her and learn so much from her just from this conversation. Like we're now connected and figuring out like how do we kind of integrate that Ayurvedic like knowledge into the foods that we eat.
Hmm.
Maybe it's through Samsara, maybe it's through like an eventual Samsara subsequent product that we would release. But just kind of thinking through how that all shows up is like a conversation I might not have had otherwise. Actually, I definitely would not have had that conversation otherwise. Definitely some interesting doors that way. I had a lot of like not a lot. I've had a few food scientists reach out to me, which has been really cool to be like, hey,
Hmm.
like if you ever want to riff on, formulations or like things like that. I'm like, that's really cool.
Like,
Like
definitely.
definitely, right? And so I think it's been, fascinating to have these connections, again, as like a total outsider that I would not have had otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool that, get like through, I feel like an old person saying this, but like through the internet, like it's okay to be an outsider, right? Like, cause once you
It
start
is.
putting your signal out there, like you can first start following people who have information to share and then interacting with them. And it really just reduces a lot of like the barriers to entry into something new.
Absolutely. And I think what it's taught me is that there are a lot of people out there who are just seeking like that sort of friendly connection. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for that. And so I think that's been really nice to see.
Yeah. So, Shrivanti, I want to do a rapid reflection
Okay, let's do it.
round.
I love it.
What's a food that makes you feel at home?
It makes me feel like feel
At home.
anything.
At home.
It makes me feel at home. For me, it's an Indian food. It's puri, which is like a puffed, fried bread and potato, like a potato curry that goes with it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite food. I like loved whenever my mom made it. I actually don't make it. And so I just like I haven't really learned how to make the bread specifically. So whenever like my mom or my mother-in-law makes it, I'm like I feel right at home. So,
I
yeah.
love that. And it's also a place it sounds like where you can just receive, so you're in a moment now where you're like
That's
offering so
ex
much to
that's
so
why
many people.
exactly, where I was like, "Oh, this is something that makes me feel at home, AKA something that I don't have to make for someone else."
Mhm. I hear that.
Yeah.
What's an engineering mindset or skill that you still find yourself using on, like, a daily basis?
Yeah, breaking down big problems into small problems. They're like anytime I feel overwhelmed, I'm like, how do I break this down into a smaller problem until it's to like a sub problem that I can figure out? A lot of parenting challenges are really just breaking down big problems into smaller ones that you can just keep chipping away and you'll figure it out. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
What's a moment that you're really proud of recently? Like something big, something small, but that where you
Sure.
just felt like, I don't know, especially as a mom, I feel like we need those moments where like, I crushed that because very often it doesn't feel that way.
So, so true. I'm trying to think. I'm so thankful that I have a lot of moments where I felt proud. But for me, I think it was really the like a moment where I'm actually, oh my God, why am I struggling? I feel like there's a lot and it's hard at the same time. It sounds weird to be proud of this, but like proud that my kids like actually slept really well throughout the night, at least at some point of
Mhm.
time. I feel like that was something where I was like, it felt like teamwork, like, the kids had to work on it together and I had to work on it, but, like, we eventually got there, and I think the other big moment for me was, like, landing my contract manufacturer, like, that was, like,
Mm.
from the business
Mhm.
side of things. Getting in the door into a contract manufacturer is not easy, and when I, like, saw that they saw the vision and they believed in me, because really entering into business together,
Yeah.
that was just such a big moment of validation for me where I was like, "Yes," like, I feel like I'm heading on the right path, so
Well, that's
2
awesome because
moments
it's
that are
not.
totally different.
But actually, I feel like the boys sleeping well is also very much an enabler of you telling your story
Yes.
effectively, right? So that the
Oh,
contract
yeah.
manager gets the manufacturer
Heck
gets
yeah.
the vision.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that or I'm, like, fueled by insane amounts of coffee.
That too. That too. What's one thing that you're trying to do less of these
Oh
days?
gosh. I'm trying to do less of, like, scrolling on the internet. I scroll a lot. Some of it's important for like, it's important for me to learn about what brands are out there and, like, CPG world, but part of that is just me lying to myself saying that I need to do that. I don't actually need to do that. I think I talked about how precious time feels when you're a mom, and sometimes I don't make the best use of my, like, free time. I really just scroll endlessly.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I definitely fall into that trap
Yeah.
too. Now it's like a more scrolling Substack than Instagram, and I'm like, "Oh, no,"
Right.
but it's like
Which is great, but then at some point, I do feel like I feel better about scrolling Substack, but at some point, you're still scrolling, and I
you're
have
still
to
scrolling.
you're
Yeah.
still scrolling.
You
Yeah.
have to stop.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe, in the position that you were at when you were an engineering manager and you knew that the old life wasn't fitting you, but you also didn't know what was next? What would you tell that person?
Yeah, it's kind of what I told myself when I was ready to leave, which is like leave before you're ready. I mean, I definitely have the financial safety net to leave, but
Hmm.
like leave before you're fully ready because I think we often wait too long for things to happen. And I think like that's just, I feel like the time that you're spending after you know you want to make a change, it's just, again, you're kind of lying to yourself saying like, "Oh, I need this extra time to feel like extra secure in my decision to leave." You're just delaying the inevitable and I think you don't know what's on the other side until you open that door and until you kind of, make the decision. And so to kind of approach that transition with excitement instead of fear. Because I think I've never had someone or known someone who's like quit their job or, took a sabbatical or whether it's like taking a sabbatical or just totally pivoting. I don't
Hmm.
think I've ever met anyone who's regretted it actually. Like even if they
Yeah,
go back to that exact same job, I don't think anyone's regretted it. So you have nothing to lose. So
I love that.
yeah.
Well, I think that's the perfect note to end on. Shrivanti, if people want to follow along on your journey, where's the best
Yeah.
place to find you?
So, samsaranutrition.com if you would like to sign up for our email list. It's pretty bare bones right now, but we will be doing a pre-sale in about a couple months. And then if you want to follow my Substack, I write about motherhood and building the business all at once. And that is my first name, SRAVANTI.substack.com. Thank you so, so much for having me on, Allie. I'm so glad we obviously have been friends for a long time, but it's been so, so lovely to, see you make this happen. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story.
No, well, thank you so much for sharing your honest
Yeah.
heart and
Oh,
wisdom.
always. No, you're an amazing podcast host.
No, thank you. Oh, I'm definitely going to keep that in
Keep
there.
that. You should keep that. Of course you should. You're so, so thoughtful. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Practically on Purpose with Ali Canton. If you're enjoying the show, the best way to support it is to subscribe, leave a review, or forward it to someone else who might need it. You can also follow along or reach out anytime at alicanton.substack.com. I read every note, and it means so much more than you know. Special thanks to Mutual Benefit for the beautiful music that brings us in and out each week. You can find more of their work wherever you listen to music. And until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and stop living someone else's success story and step into your own.